Hello, everybody. Oh my gosh, I have such a treat for you guys and a treat for me because we are going to be talking to a woman that is doing something that when I heard about it, I was instantly intrigued and wanted to know more, and actually am most likely going to be participating in this program that she has created. So I cannot wait for you to hear about it. Her name is Pasha Marlowe, and she comes to us all the way from Maine, which is a beautiful place. So, Pasha, please tell us a little bit about yourself and then tell us what you were doing pre 2020 and this crazy year, and then how you've had to pivot and what you are doing now.
Got it. Thank you very much, Janice, for having me. Hello, everybody. 2019 was harder for me than 2020. So I understand that this year is very turbulent for people, but my story is rooted in the fact that I have gained skills in resiliency and perseverance and awareness because of what I went through starting in 2019. So prior to 2020 and 2019, I was a marriage and family therapist and a holistic personal trainer, working for the last 20, 25 years, helping people get fit through yoga and Pilates and meditation and weightlifting. And I love the work. But it all came to a halt last summer when I have 3 kids. I have 2 adult children and 1 little boy, Jamie. And at the time he was 11 and he was bit by a tick. And I don't know if you have Lyme disease out where you are, but where we are, it's rampant. And so he was bit by a tick. It was undiagnosed, misdiagnosed. He got Lyme disease. It turned into late stage Lyme. And the symptoms were so severe that he couldn't go to school for all of 6th grade, couldn't walk on his own, go to the bathroom on his own, couldn't sleep on his own. And we're still pretty much in this cycle. But now it's a year and a half later and we're used to it. But we've also figured out ways to survive it. So the reason why I bring it up is because I had to stop everything I was doing to figure out how to keep my little boy alive and in the game, because the physical and emotional pain of the illness was making him want to take his life. So last summer, I decided that we would do anything, as any parent would, from therapy to medicine to treatments. We went to all the hospitals, doctors. We tried talking to shamans and psychics. We tried acupuncture and massage and you name it. We've tried it all. What ended up working, interestingly enough, was the opposite of what we were feeling. So I found us in hospitals every day to every week, feeling grief and feeling sorrow and not finding the joy in anything. So we very mindfully and bravely started to find humor in our surroundings. And it started off, I didn't know where this would go at the time. So it just started off silly things like on the days where he would say, "Mama, I'm done. It's too much pain. I just want to leave this earth." I would say, "Well, tonight, if you could play a practical joke on me, because I'm not gonna expect it. I'm not gonna ask you what it is. Just surprise me with it and play a practical joke on me." And he would get that in his head and he would start to play practical jokes on us on the really hard days, which gave him, of course, something to look forward to. We ended up laughing instead of crying. He put himself to sleep in laughter instead of tears. And it started to it just shifted everything. We, even in the hospital visits and in the doctor's visits, when we had painful treatments or disgusting medicine, and I say we because the irony and it seemed very unfair at the time, but I got Lyme disease as well in October. So he got it in August and I got it in October. And it was rather like, it seemed at first like insult to injury, but it turned out to be a gift because I had to take my energy level down. I had to embrace, okay, we're going to snuggle and nap all day. And we're just going to go to doctors every day. And I really wasn't forcing myself to work and to be productive because I couldn't. And so we were going through this together. So we were both empathetic to each other's fatigue and pains. So in doing these treatments, like I'm thinking back to a time when he had a blood draw and they missed, or like, those times when they just poke you like 4 or 6 times and the blood doesn't come out. And then they go a little too deep and then the blood comes spurting out. And he was covered, like shirt and pants and everything. And this is, for him, that would have been really traumatic, and he probably would have never gotten a blood draw again if it were up to him. But we were in a place where we're just like, how bad can this get? How awful can these phlebotomists be? Well, that's really bad. And then we started laughing at how awful the bedside manner was, how awful the decor in the hospitals is, how awful the television shows they play in the waiting rooms are. And then 2020 came and we're like, ha ha ha, ha, that's so funny, because finally you're healed enough to want to go back to school, and then school's canceled. And oh, by the way, I know you spent a year without seeing your friends, but now you can't still see your friends because it's lethal. We're just like, wow. But we were equipped with it. We were already equipped by 2020 to learn to laugh at it. And I know it saved his life, and it saved mine too, because I didn't feel like I could have survived him taking his life. So I saved both of our lives in doing that. It was a conscious, mindful, brave decision to embrace humor.
Oh, can I just tell you, I mean, listening to that story, I literally am over here kind of like trying not to cry. And I tend toward more the dramatic and the crying and the, that sort of emotional state. But this is what I find so refreshing and so fascinating about you and what you're doing, which we still haven't even got to, but it has to do with humor and laughing. Is it's this amazing perspective shift, and I find myself internally kind of almost wanting to fight it. Like there's this thing as you're talking that I'm going, but no, that is sad and that is horrible and I want to cry and and I know there's times for all of it, right? There's times for crying and there's times for laughter and joy. But I love that you purposefully, because you had tried so many things, figured out that humor and laughter was actually kind of the key to your son feeling happier, to your son feeling better, and then you in turn feeling better. I just think it's something that, at least for me, I hadn't really considered. So tell us a little bit, how did you find that? I know you had done different things.
Yeah, I mean, I just came at it in such a strange way. I spent the first I'm 50 now. For 49 years, if you were to ask me or somebody else who I am, I'd be very serious, mostly sad, prone to depression, anxiety, and insomnia, and really can't have small talk, not easy to laugh, not funny. 49 years. And so I was reading when Jamie got sick about death and dying. I was reading about God. I was reading about the Holocaust. I was reading stories that were like, I wanted other people to, like, I want to understand pain. I want to understand grief. I want to understand like how I could walk through this journey towards potential death. Like, how do I do this? And strangely enough, in Viktor Frankl's book, In a Man's Search for Meaning, which is about how people survived the Holocaust, he said, there's like 2 sentences in this whole book, but he said the people who survived the concentration camps were those who figured out a way to still laugh. And I was like, I don't know, it was just the perfect time. You know how messages just come to us at the perfect time. And I was picturing being in a concentration camp with my kid, and I was like, what would they have to laugh about? And he mentioned just simple things like when they brought bread, they're like, oh, bread again, whatever, the smallest of, moments of humor. And the fact that they were laughing together about it. Like they could make fun about how terrible it was together. So there was this sense of community and collaboration and belonging and relatability, which is what comedy is based in, I learned. And I thought, well, if that's possible, then, and I started thinking about other Holocaust related stories, like the movie Life is Beautiful. I don't know if you know this one. The actor's name was Benini, and he pretends the Holocaust and the concentration camps were like a game to allow his child to survive it. I don't know. It's a terribly heartbreaking and hilarious, make you cry and laugh movie. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. Life is beautiful. And I was brought back to that. And I just started thinking, I've never explored this. Like in all my life, I was raised to believe that leisure is laziness and like comfort is, worthless, and idleness is death. Like these were things that were drilled into my head. There was no value put upon humor or comedy, and still is not in my family. And they're looking at me like, you, like, what are you doing and why? It makes no sense. And my friends have said over the last year and a half, that I'm just a different person. I'm just a different person. And I didn't go in thinking that that was going to be the case, but I'm sure glad I am, because I'm like myself more and I'm better for myself, my kid, my clients, my friends, my family. So it was in reading about the grief and reading about death that I learned about comedy. And a lot of comedians, as you know, they came from very challenged backgrounds and a lot of trauma and loss themselves. And they create, my favorite is Tig Notaro, just creating comedy out of heartache and loss and illness, and saying this is hard. Like, agree, I could cry about it. I could tell you this story without the lens of humor and cry my eyes out for days. Have done that. And but it wouldn't be as easy for you to receive, and it certainly wouldn't be as easy for me to teach about healing with humor if I did it in a heavy way. So it's another way for me to get my message out too, about surviving illness and injury and suicide. Is like, how can I reach people to heal the children and adults that are suffering right now in 2020 more than ever?
Definitely. And tell everybody who's watching exactly what it is that you have created.
So I already was a health coach and life coach, doing some holistic wellness with my clients, and I started bringing humor into my appointments. Like, we would do Pilates and yoga, and now we'd start to bring in humor. And first of all, they were just wanted to come back and do more, and then they were feeling emotionally lighter, physically lighter, better off to go back to their friends and family and do the things they loved. And then I started thinking, how can I make this more fun and even more powerful? And I love the idea of vulnerability and courage and putting yourself out there and doing radical truth telling and heroic self-loving through storytelling, which I was doing with my clients anyhow. But I thought, how can I make them more visible and stand in their power more? So I thought, well, a culminating event would be really cool if we all got on stage and told our stories on a comedy stage, and kind of like Moth TED Talk, but comedy. And so I was like, well, well, I can't just ask them to tell a story on stage and say, next week we're doing this, because it takes a lot of processing and bravery and practice and comedic technique and storytelling technique, and just putting yourself out there and being vulnerable to others, and being prepared for whatever happens after you release your story from your body and not hold on to it anymore. And so I developed something called Roar with Laughter, which is an 8-week program that takes people from, I call it rupture to rapture, rupture being all of the heartache and the loss and the grief and the fears and 2020. And then rapture being obviously laughter and joy and humor, but also there's a large amount of time we spend on pleasure. And for women, especially, not just sexual pleasure, although that's part of it, but like, what do we like? What do we actually like? If we could take, society and patriarchy and the influences of the people around us, who are we? What do we actually like to wear? What do we actually like to eat? What do we actually like to do? And can we give that to ourselves? And can we acknowledge it and take action and bring ourselves pleasure? And when we tap into the pleasure and the desire and the turn on and things that keep us feeling alive, we're lighter physically and emotionally. And then we can access the humor more. And so it's a process, including taking our stories of trauma and limiting beliefs, and then turning them into our comedy routines. So each participant at the end of the 8 weeks does this show. We do it together. It's right now on Zoom because not live yet, but it will be. And everyone's told different stories. Some people declare their uh, alcohol abuse. Some people declare their sexuality. Some people talk about their sexual abuse or traumas. Some people talk about how they are a mom, but they're really not enjoying being a mom right now, or losing a spouse or losing a pet. Like the stuff that's holding us down, keeping us from living fully and joyfully. We tell that story through the lens of humor. And then it's released. And then because there's no one-way liberation, somebody in the audience, no doubt, here's the story and they're like, oh, I could relate to that. And then they tell their story to somebody else. And then I think it's, continuous snowball effect there. And a snowball effect in a good way of healing and liberation.
Man, Pasha, I just every time I think of what you're doing and the creative expression and that release, and also shifting the perspective to how can I tell this in a comedic way or view it through a different lens. It really is brilliant. So when I talk to you, just I mean, we just barely met and I'm like, I just love you. I think you're fantastic and amazing and talented, and what you have created is seriously brilliant, for people to really express, be creative, heal. I mean, on so many levels. You did mention a term that I loved. I actually just wrote it down: heroic self-love.
Yes.
And I'm all about self-love because for many years I was doing the self-loathing
Yes.
and treating myself horribly from that place
Mhm.
of just insecurity and negativity and not liking myself. So learning how to love myself has been this amazing process and journey. Tell us a little bit more about what you define as being heroic self-love and how that looks in your own life.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to tie it back to humor again because I spend a lot of time self loathing. And then, of course, in the fitness industry, there's this extra seemingly pressure to be of a certain size and ability. And as I aged, and I've had 3 or 4 joint replacements now, major surgeries where I used to be a professional triathlete and now I can't. And so I had to, okay, accept that. And then I have to accept whatever illness and injury came my way. And then in turning 45, 46, now 50, things shift. Like I really had always heard that things shift when you're 50. And I was like, yeah, but if you exercise and eat right, you'll be fine. And it's like, oh, things like actually happen even when you eat right and you exercise. And it's kind of funny. I mean, it's uncomfortable sometimes too, but we talk about, okay, if we do jumping jacks, we're going to probably pee in our pants. Is it worth it to do jumping jacks? Will Kegel squeezes and pelvic floor exercises help? Yes. Things drop. Will they still drop even after exercising? Yes. Will we lose our jawline? Probably. Will we get age spots? Probably. All the things. And we could really beat ourselves up as women doing that. And I think only in sisterhood and talking to another woman, having another woman mirror your radiance, remind you of your gifts, when you're feeling those self-loathing, I call it, like when you're stuck in this shit storm or the swamp or whatever you want to say. And it's like, you need somebody to help you out of it. So in heroic self-loving, I started to ask for help. I would call my friends and be like, okay, if I were to do a TED talk today, what would it be on? And they would remind me on all the things that I know and how I can help and inspire and bring purpose to the world. Or I would just flat out be like, what do you like about me? Because I can't remember. Please remind me. What do I do that's good? And sometimes my son and I will do this. I'll say, sweetie, how can I be a better mama? Because I'm so sorry you're still sick. And he'll pat my head. He's like, Mom, I know you're doing the best you can. And it's hard. This illness is, there's no cure yet. We've started to like talk each other back into the day. And there's a lot of snuggling, a lot of asking for what we need in heroic self-love, certainly the mindset and the self-talk. But strangely enough, despite being in the whole fitness industry, and probably a year ago, if it's about the number on the scale, probably 30 pounds lighter last year, I feel really good about taking up space right now. And I really I don't love not being able to fit all my clothes. So that's just like truth and transparency there. But that's not what this year has been about for me. And I've still been healthy, and I'm still doing the all the good things and not sabotaging myself, but I just wasn't focusing as much on the size and all that. So it turns out when you don't focus on it, you get bigger. And so I got bigger. And I'm like, but I'm also getting healthier mentally. And I'm also healing people. And then I'm also making people laugh. And I'm also having more fun. And I'm also being more visible. So now all of a sudden I'm taking up space where before I was self-loathing and just wanting to be smaller and smaller and smaller and disappear. I'm like, well, this is self-love. And I'm talking myself through it every single day, because there'll be times where I do fall back into not feeling worthy of everything, and it's a process every single day. But I think,
Definitely. And I think, I mean, I'm with you 100% that it's ups and downs, and we have to remind ourselves. But what would you say to a woman that struggles with perfectionism
hmm,
and, feeling like, oh, we have to, like you said, be a certain size or look a certain way, or have, that perfectionist mindset where then it becomes debilitating?
yeah, the thing that comes to mind is embracing our imperfections and this beautiful art that I keep coming back to in my head, where they take a piece of sculpture and they crack it into bits, and then they put it back together, and then they fill all the cracks of the sculpture with gold. And I see that and I'm thinking, okay, those are my scars, those are my traumas, those are the hard lessons, those are the mistakes and the failures. And can those also become my gifts and my lessons? And can they also be what makes me unique and a little quirky and kind of messy? And a year ago or a year and a half ago, I would not have dared come to this interview with glasses on, because it's not perfect. I wouldn't have come with a shirt that's too tight and you don't even want to know what's going on waist down. Like, I wouldn't have dared, because I was feeling the professionalism. I haven't showered, but you can't tell. I just feel like I'm giving myself a break more, and then I'm still receiving love, and actually even more, because now I'm more approachable and I'm messy, so they can be messy. And in the sense of we're all, flawed. And I'm making more friends, deeper friendships. I just find that we're boring when we're perfect, and it's just not unique. And so I was boring myself. I was like boring myself and having too high expectations of myself and not enjoying my own company. You know that I'm trying to think of the poem, like, enjoy the company you keep in those quiet, peaceful, private moments. I think it was Mary Oliver, because she said everything brilliant. But it's like, do I even like who I am? And I like myself more now than ever before. And had you asked me 2 years ago, would you like yourself if you were 30 pounds heavier and didn't work out as much? I'm like, oh, no, no, gross. Like, who would want me? And turns out I'm rathering wanting myself than caring if some other person wants me. I just want to be okay with myself.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And I didn't know you 2 years ago, but I can tell you right now, whatever you're doing, keep doing that. And I think you're doing you, and you're being authentic, and you're owning it and embracing it. And it's beautiful. And I will tell you that definitely attracts It's like that energy that you put out of self-confidence and self-worth and really liking yourself. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, and just as a byproduct, other people like me too, which is kind of cool. And oh my gosh, this has been so amazing, so insightful. You are just, I mean, incredible. And as we wrap up here, can you just leave the viewers with anything that's on your heart that you want to share with them, whether it be about self-love, about humor, about living their best lives, whatever's on your heart, just share with our viewers.
Yeah, I don't know when they're going to watch this, but what's coming to me right now on Monday, the eve of the election, is first of all, it's going to be okay. No matter what happens, it's going to be okay. And we are stronger than we know. We are stronger than we think, and we can do hard things and have hard conversations, and we can, one person at a time, heal ourselves and our people around us. And we should never stop trying that, and our smallest of attempts are quite impactful.
Oh, I love that. And just more and more for me this year, it's been seeing that change really starts with us.
Yeah.
And, obviously we want to see changes in the world and changes in, our communities and those types of
Mhm.
things. But in all reality, if we start here,
Yeah.
that's the ticket. It's like, yes, let's start there, and then those ripple effects,
Yeah.
and it radiates out, and really that is how we end up changing the world and our communities and our families. So I
Great.
think that's perfectly stated. And I just want to thank you so much for being who you are, bringing your unique gifts and talents and love and brilliance. And I am very looking forward to doing your program of Roar, probably in January, and
Yeah.
really digging deep myself and doing something that I really have never done before. And I'm very excited about. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's scary and thrilling. And that's what keeps us alive, right? Doing those tiny little risky, scary things that give us butterflies in our stomach and step outside of our comfort zone a little bit. You learn a lot about yourself. So I know you're going to have
Exactly.
fun. Yeah.
Yes, and creating something. I love the idea of creating something
Mhm.
from nothing, and no, and just knowing like, hey, I did that. That didn't
Yeah.
exist before, and now it's here. I mean, we are all creators, so the more things that we can create, and in our own unique ways, and bring ourselves out, that expression,
Yeah.
I think we're better for it, and other people around us are also better for it. So thank you,
Absolutely.
Pasha. Mwah.
Thank you, Janice. So good to see you. Thanks everybody for watching.
So good to see you. Bye.
Bye.